Dragon Masters, Rise of the Earth Dragon. Chapter 1. To the Castle. Drake didn't see the king's soldier coming. He was busy digging in the onion patch. He pulled out a fat white onion. A worm crawled on it. Drake didn't mind the worm. He was the son of a farmer. His family had been growing onions in the kingdom of Bracken forever. He would spend his life digging up onions, whether he wanted to or not. Drake picked up the worm. "Hello, little guy," he said. Then he put the worm back in the dirt. "Are you Drake?" a loud voice asked beside him. Drake jumped and turned around. One of the king's soldiers rode up on a black horse. He had a yellow beard. His shirt had a golden dragon sewn on it. It, the symbol of King Roland the Bold. "Yes, I'm Drake," Drake said, in his voice shaking. Soldiers never came to the field, not unless a farmer was in trouble. The soldier rode up to Drake. He reached down and pulled him up onto the horse. "Hey, what are you doing?" Drake yelled. The soldier didn't answer. Drake's mother ran out of their hut. "Wait, where are you taking my boy?" she yelled. "To King Roland," the soldier said. Drake's heart jumped a little. He had always wanted to meet the king. "But he's only 8, his mother yelled. She marched up to the horse. "The king has chosen him," the soldier said. "Chosen me for what?" Drake wondered. He knew better than to ask the soldier questions. Peasants like Drake weren't allowed to speak unless spoken to. "The king will take good care of him," the soldier said. Then he spurred on the horse and sped off. "Drake, do as the king says," his mother calls out. Drake had never been on a horse before. He held on tight. Drake's heart pumped fast as they raced through the village. They raced over the stone bridge. Finally, they stopped in front of King Roland's castle. The soldier helped Drake climb down from the horse. He opened the castle doors and gave Drake a shove. They passed paintings and statues of people in fancy clothes. The soldier stomped behind Drake as they walked through the halls. Drake wanted to look at everything, but the soldier gave him a push whenever he slowed down. Then they came to some stairs. They walked down. The soldier stopped at a door. "Where are we going?" Drake finally asked. "We are not going anywhere," the soldier said. "Good luck." Then he ran back up the stairs. "Hey, what do you mean?" Drake yelled, but he was all alone. Drake looked at the big stone door. He felt afraid, but more than that, he was curious. He pushed it open and saw, bam! The face of a giant red dragon. Drake blinked. He didn't believe his eyes. Then, whoosh! The dragon shot a fireball from his mouth. Chapter 2. The Dragon Stone. Drake dove away from the door. The fireball just missed him. "Vulcan, stand down," he heard someone yell. Drake stood up. A red-haired girl was standing in the doorway. "No more fireballs," she yelled at the dragon. He had shiny red scales and a long, thick tail. 2 big wings grew out of his back. Dragons aren't real, thought Drake. But Drake could see the dragon. And he had felt the heat from the fireball. A tall man walked past the girl. He had a long white beard. He wore a pointy hat and a dark green robe. "Welcome, Drake," the man said. "I am Griff, the king's wizard." Did he say wizard? Drake had so many questions. "Is that a dragon?" he asked. "He's not just a dragon," said the girl. "He is my dragon. Vulcan is the best dragon in the kingdom." Drake, meet Rory, Griff said. Rory, please take Vulcan away. Tell the others I will be there shortly. Others? Drake thought. The girl sighed. Fine, let's go. Vulcan. She led the dragon away. Then the wizard led Drake down a dark hall. Why am I here, sir? Drake asked. Griff didn't answer. He stopped in front of the door. Griff pointed at its big brass lock. Sparks flew from his fingers. The lock opened. Drake's eyes grew wide. Wizard magic, he thought. He followed Griff into a room piled high with strange things. He saw bottles filled with colorful waters and powder. Griff picked up a wooden box. The box was carved with pictures of dragons. This is why you're here, he said, opening the box. Drake peered inside. A green stone as big as his head glittered in the light. This is a dragon stone. A green stone as big as his head glittered in the light. This dragon stone told me you have the heart of a dragon, said the wizard. He tapped Drake's chest. It did? Drake asked. His eyes got big. Yes, and those with the heart of a dragon become dragon masters for King Roland, Griff said. Drake had heard stories about the magical dragonstone, but he had never believed they were real. Now, all his questions came spilling out. How does the stone know that I have a heart of a dragon? And how did you find me? And what's a dragon master? And why does King Roland want dragon masters? The stone is old and mysterious, Griff said. Even I do not fully understand its magic. A dragon master is able to connect with dragons. As for the king, he is very fond of dragons, but he cannot control them. So, Vulcan isn't the only dragon? Drake asked. The wizard grinned. No, he is not. He handed Drake a green stone on a gold chain. This is a piece of the dragon stone, he said. It will help you connect with your dragon. Drake's heart jumped. My dragon? I get a dragon? He thought. He slipped the stone on in his pocket. Be careful, Drake, the wizard warned. Dragons are dangerous, and even the dragon stone can't protect you from their powers. What powers? Drake asked. The wizard led him away without another word. Chapter 3. More dragons. Drake's mind was spinning as he left the wizard's workshop. He followed Griff to a big underground room. There were no windows. Torches hung on the wall. Drake saw Rory and Vulcan. He also saw 2 more kids and 2 more dragons. Drake, this is Boo, Griff said, pointing to a boy with black hair and his dragon Shu. Boo was petting his dragon's tail. The dragon had shiny blue scale but no wings. Hi, Drake, he said. Nice to meet you, Drake, the boy said politely. Griff led Drake over to a girl with long black hair. Her dragon had white scales. A yellow band of scales circled the dragon's neck. The tip of its wings were yellow too. This is Anna and her dragon Capri, Griff said. Drake nodded. Hi, he said. We could use someone new around here, Anna said with a grin. You have met the other dragon masters and their dragons. It is time for you to meet your dragon, Griff said. Drake's heart pounded. My family will never believe this, he thought. Just this morning I was digging onions. Now I have ridden a horse. I've met a wizard. I've seen the dragonstone. And I'm going to have my very own dragon. He and the other dragon masters followed Griff down another dark hallway. The dragon sleeps in caves where they're not training, Boo explained as they walked. Vulcan's cave is the biggest, bragged Rory. Griff stopped in front of a small cave. Wood bars cover the cave. Drake, meet your dragon, the wizard said. Chapter 4, Worm. Drake peered inside the dark cave. A dragon sat inside. Well, this creature kind of looks like a dragon, Drake thought. The dragon had brown scales that weren't as shiny. He had 2 tiny wings. He had big green eyes and little ears. He didn't have legs. He looked like a big snake. The only dragon-like thing about him seems to be his long snout. Drake stepped up to the wood bars. Hi, dragon. I'm Drake. The dragon didn't move. Put on the stone, Griff said. Drake slipped the green stone around his neck. He felt a tingly feeling all over his body. Right away, the dragon lifted his head. He stared at Drake with his big green eyes. Drake felt a strange chill. Griff stepped forward. You must name your dragon, he said. Rory piped up. Good luck naming him. He looks boring. How about Noodlehead? Anna asked with a giggle. Boo shook his head. No, this dragon needs a good name. Drake looked carefully at the dragon. He looked at his long brown body. Worm, he said. His name is Worm. That is a good name for an earth dragon, Griff said, opening the gate. Now, Drake, ask Worm to follow you. Okay, Drake said. Worm, please follow me. Worm crawled forward. Good work, said the wizard. Keep it up, Drake. Come on, Drake said, starting to walk down the hallway. Worm crawled after him. He really is like a big, ugly worm, Rory said. Rory, be nice, said Anna. Drake didn't say anything. Worm was like a big worm. Where are we going, he asked. To the training room, Griff replied. Yeah, said Rory. We'll see what you and your dragon are made of. Drake felt nervous. He touched his dragonstone. How am I supposed to train a dragon, he thought. What if I fail? What if I'm not a dragon master after all? Chapter 5. Do something. The training room was one big open space, shields and long poles hung from the wall. Buckets held water and sand. And at one end of the room was a round target. Straw stuffing poked out of its sides. Griff pointed at the target. Sparks flew from his fingers, and a red bull's eye showed up on the target. It's time for target practice, the wizard said. Me first, Rory called out. Vulcan, come. The red dragon stomped forward. Vulcan, fire! Rory yelled. The dragon's orange eyes glowed. Then 2 streams of fire shot from his nose. The streams twisted together. The fire hit the bullseye. Perfect, Rory cheered. Then the straws burst into flame. Drake jumped back. Good aim, said Griff. Boo, can you help put the fire out? Yes, said Boo. He looked at his dragon. Shoo, he said simply. He didn't yell like Rory. Shoo swiftly crossed the room. Did her feet even touch the ground, wondered Drake. Water, please, Shoo, Boo said. A stream of water sprayed out of the blue dragon's mouth. The fire sizzled. Water droplets danced in the air, lit up by the torches. Capri, rainbow time, Anna cried. Capri glided across the room. Drake thought her white scales looked like jewels. A soft beam of light came out of Capri's mouth. It grew wider and wider. When it hit the water droplets, it made a rainbow. Wow, Drake said. Isn't she amazing? Asked Boo. Anna smiled. Rory put her hands on her hips. Now, let's see what Worm can do, she said. Drake felt nervous. He looked at Worm. Worm, are you ready? Drake asked. Worm stared back at him. I guess that means yes, thought Drake. Okay, Worm, fire! Drake jumped back in case a fire came out of Worm's mouth. But Worm just laid there. Not all dragons can shoot fire, said Boo. Drake nodded. Right. Okay, Worm, water! But Worm didn't shoot water. Ha! Rory laughed. I knew it. Worm can't do anything. Drake's cheeks grew hot with anger. He's just warming up, he said. Go on, Worm. Shoot light out of your mouth. Still nothing. You call it a dragon, Rory said. Please, Worm, Drake whispered to his dragon. Do something. Worm just blinked. Do not worry, Drake. Getting to know your dragon takes time, Griff said. Tracker practice is over today. Let's go eat. Boo grabbed Drake's elbow. I hope you're hungry, Drake. The Dragon Masters get as much food as we want, said Boo. Drake was hungry, so the news made him feel a little better. But he had failed the training. How can I be a Dragon Master if my dragon won't do anything I asked it to do? He thought. I'm only an onion farmer. I don't belong here. Chapter 6. A New Friend. There was so much food at the dining room table. Roast chicken, potatoes, carrots, bread, cheese. It was more food than Drake had ever seen in his life. Pass the potatoes, please, Drake said. Griff pointed to the plate of potatoes. Sparks flew from his fingers. As the plate floated over to Drake, he forgot all about wanting to go home. He stabbed the potato with his fork. Is every supper like this? Drake asked Boo. Boo nodded. Yes, there is always a great deal of good food, he said, but sometimes I miss my mother's soup. Is your home kingdom far away? Drake asked. Very far, said Boo. I come from the east, the kingdom of Emperor Song. And I come from the south, added Anna. It is warm there, not cold and damp like it is here. Well, I am proud to be from this kingdom, Rory said. My father is a blacksmith. He made the best horseshoes in our village. Drake missed home. He turned to Griff. Is there a way I can let my family know I am okay? Drake asked. The wizard nodded. You may send them a note. He waved at one of the servants. Please bring this boy paper and a quill. The servant gave Drake paper, a small pot of ink, and a feather. Drake's cheek turned red. What? Rory asked. Haven't you seen paper before? Drake looked down at his plate. I worked in the field at home, he said. I never went to school. I know how to read, but we never had paper or quills, so I don't know how to write. Rory started to say something, but Griff gave her a hard look. Boo picked up the quill. I will write the note for you, he said. Thanks, Drake said. Then he told Boo what to write. Dear Mother, I am safe, so please do not worry. Everything is new and exciting. The king is keeping me well fed. My new friend Boo helped me write this letter. Love, Drake. Drake did not say anything about dragons. He thought that might scare his mother. The servant took the note away. Drake yawned. So where do we sleep? We have rooms in the tower, Boo said. You will be in my room. Drake smiled. Good. At least he had one new friend here. Suddenly, a soldier stomped into the room. All rise for King Roland the Bold, he said. Chapter 7. A Strange Dream. The Dragon Masters jumped on their feet. King Roland swept into the room. He was a big man with red hair and a bushy beard. He walked right up to Drake. Drake was so nervous, he was shaking. This is my new Dragon Master, he asked. Yes, your highness, said Griff. The king frowned. He's scrawny. Drake felt like sinking into the floor. The king turned to Griff. Explain this to me, wizard. My strongest men cannot control dragons. But why is it that these children can? It's the way of the Dragonstone, Griff said. It's a mystery, even to me. Snorted the king. Very well, then. I shall leave my army in your hands. Army? Drake wondered. King Roland looked at Drake again. Don't let me down, boy, he said. Then he and the soldier left. Everyone sat back down. The king's words scared Drake. What will happen if I do let him down? Drake wondered. He had a feeling it wouldn't be good. Boo took Drake to their room. There was a bed and a wooden chest for each of them. There was also a desk for them to share. A jug of water sat on the table. That is your bed, Boo said, pointing. Drake climbed into bed. The moon shone through a small window. Drake looked over at Boo. He was already sleeping peacefully. Drake soon drifted off to sleep too. All of a sudden, he was in a dark cave. The air in the cave felt warm. It smelled like the deep, rich dirt where the onions grew. Green eyes glowed in the darkness. Worm! Worm was in the cave, and behind him were other dragons. They all had the same brown scale and green eyes. Boom! A loud explosion shook the cave. Smoke filled the air. Worm let out a cry. The dragon slithered across the cave floor looking for a way out. Drake woke up from his bed, dripping sweat. That was some nightmare, he thought. It felt so real. Chapter 8. Flying Practice. After breakfast the next morning, Drake went back underground with Griff and the other Dragon Masters. Why don't we train all the way? Chapter 8. Flying Practice. After breakfast the next morning, Drake went back underground with Griff and the other Dragon Masters. Why do we all train all the way down here? Drake asked as they walked. Don't you know? Rory said. We're a secret. No one knows the dragons are real. No one knows the Dragonstone is real. And no one knows about us. Drake looked at the wizard. It is true, Griff said. The king does not want others to know about the dragons. Because he's building a dragon army? Drake asked. That is the king's business, not ours, said Griff. He opened the door to the hallway of the dragon caves. Collect your dragons. We are going outside today. Hooray! Yelled Anna, Rory, and Boo. But won't someone see us if we go outside? Asked Drake. No, we'll be hidden in the Valley of Clouds, said Anna. Hurry, go get Worm. Drake ran through the winding hallway to Worm's cave. Worm raised his head and looked at him. It reminded Drake of his nightmare. He shivered. Come on, Worm. We are going outside, Drake said as he opened the gate. Worm crawled out of his cave. Griff led him all down a dark hallway. Griff led them all down a dark hallway. The tunnel opened up into a bright field of grass. Tall hills rose up on all sides. The sun, cheered Anna. She twirled around. Drake looked up at the sun and smiled. So, what do we do out here? He asked. Anna grinned. We fly, she said. She patted Capri on the head. Show him, girl. Capri raised her long neck and flew straight up. She looped and swirled in the air. Drake watched her, shading his eyes from the sun. He had never seen anything like it. Wait till you see Vulcan fly, Rory said. Vulcan, circle! Vulcan flapped his big red wings. He flew up into the sky and circled the field. Wow, Drake said. He looked over at Boo. Your dragon doesn't have wings, but can she fly too? He asked. Boo said she does not need wings. He said, Shoo, please fly. Shoo floated up off the grass. It's like she's swimming through the air, Drake said. Yes, said Boo. How Shoo flies is very much like how one swims. She can ride the winds. Drake looked at Worm. His tiny wings did not look like they could lift him. What about you, Worm? He asked. Can you fly too? Worm just stared at Drake. He didn't flap his wings. He didn't even move. It's okay, Drake said. He thought of how scared Worm had been in the nightmare. We can watch the others. Drake sat on the grass. He put his hand on Worm's back. The dragon moved a little closer to him. Suddenly, the dragon stone felt warm on Drake's skin. He looked down. It was glowing. Drake looked around. Griff was standing over the other dragon masters. None of their stones were glowing. Why is my stone glowing? He wondered. Am I doing something wrong? Drake quickly tucked his dragonstone inside his shirt. Then he went back to watching the other dragons fly across the sky. Chapter 9. Whispers. And that's how to shine a dragon's scale. Griff was saying later that week, remember, brush one scale at a time, no shortcuts. Rory sighed. When can we go out again? Drake was glad Rory asked. They had been stuck in the training room for 3 days. Drake liked learning about dragons, but he was used to being outside all day, every day, on his farm back home. He was starting to forget what the sun looked like. The wizard patted a tall pile of books on his desk. There is so much for you to learn first. We will go out again soon, Rory. Then a soldier came in. He handed something to Griff. The wizard smiled. Drake, it is a letter for you. Read it out loud, Anna said. Drake quickly nodded to Griff. Dear Drake, we are glad you are safe. We still don't know why the king brought you there. Can you tell us? Please keep writing so we won't worry. And thank you to your friend Boo for helping you to write to us. Love, your mother. Your mother sounds nice, Boo said. Drake's eyes started to burn. He held back his tears. Thanks, he said. May I send another letter telling her about the dragons? You must not say anything about the dragons, Griff said. The king's secret must be kept. The wizard stood up. Now it is time to shine your dragons. Let us go. As they were leaving the training room, Rory ran over to Anna. She started whispering to her. Drake kept an eye on Rory as they walked towards the dragon cave. She has a sneaky look on her face, she thought. What is she and Anna up to? Chapter 10. Worm's Story. Drake stepped inside Worm's dark cave. Worm opened one eye. I need to shine your scales, Drake said. He was carrying a brush, basket, and towels. Drake looked at Worm's brown scale. They're not shiny, he said, but I'll clean them anyway. Drake was getting used to being around Worm. The dragon's head was as big as Drake. Worm could swallow Drake in one gulp if he wanted to, but something about Worm made Drake feel peaceful. Drake gently brushed one of Worm's scale. The big dragon made a sound low in his throat. Worm smiled and closed his eyes. You like that? Drake asked. Worm made another purring sound. Good. He cleaned Worm's scale one at a time. I kind of miss the onion field back home, Drake said to his dragon. It was hard work, but I loved being outside. Drake started to clean Worm's head. And I really miss my family, Drake said. He scratched behind Worm's ear, like he did with his cat back home. Then he felt his hands started tingling. He tried to take his hands off Worm, but he couldn't. It was stuck. Drake's eyes widened. He looked at Worm, and the dragon was staring hard at him. Pictures popped into Drake's head. He saw the cave from his nightmare. He saw the explosion again. Before, Drake had woken up. This time, the pictures kept coming. Worm was trying to get out of the cave, but the other dragons were in the way. Then soldiers rushed into the cave. Each soldier's shirt had a golden dragon sewn on it. The king's soldier, Drake asked. The soldiers wrapped Worm in chains. They dragged him out of the cave. Owie! Drake could hear Worm's cry. Then his hands stopped tingling. The pictures left his head. Drake looked at Worm. Did that really happen? Did the king's men take you away from your family? Just like they took me away from mine? Worm nodded. I'm so sorry, Drake said. He threw his arms around Worm's neck. Worm closed his eyes. All his life, Drake had looked up to the king, Roland, but why would the king's men treat Worm like a prisoner? Wondered Drake. Maybe he isn't such a good king after all. Chapter 11. A Noise in the Night. Good job cleaning Worm's scale, Drake, Griff said, walking into the cave. Drake wasn't going to say anything about what Worm had showed him. Not yet, but he did have a question for Griff. How did the dragons get here, he asked. The king's soldiers searched far and wide, Griff replied. It is not easy to find a dragon. Most people have never seen one. But the king did not give up. His soldiers were able to capture these 4. But did these dragons want to come here? Drake asked. The king did not always think about what the dragons want. Griff said darkly. Now, come, it is time for supper. After they ate, Boo and Drake went to their room. Boo was teaching him how to write the alphabet. Boo drew a capital D and a lowercase d. See? Boo said. The big D looks like a dragon with a big belly. He drew a picture on the paper. Like Vulcan, Drake said with a laugh. Boo laughed, too. Moonlight glistened off Boo's dragonstone. It reminded Drake of something he wanted to ask Boo about. Does your stone ever glow? Drake asked. Boo shook his head. No, he said. Why do you ask? It's just, I thought I saw mine glow once, Drake said, when I was with Worm. That's interesting, Boo said. You should tell Griff. Boo nodded. Tomorrow, he said. Drake wrote rows of the letter D before he went to sleep. He thought he would dream of D's, or maybe Worm again. But just after he climbed into bed, thunk, Drake heard a loud noise. He sat up and saw 2 figures standing by Boo's bed. Chapter 12. A Sneaky Plan. The 2 figures turned around. It was Rory and Anna. What do you want? Drake asked. Go to sleep, Rory snapped. Why should I? He snapped back. Drake was tired of Rory being so bossy. Yeah. Why should he? Boo said. And why are you 2 here? Anna spoke up. We are going to bring our dragons outside while the rest of the castle is asleep. Do you guys want to come? You can bring Worm and Shrew. That is a bad idea, Boo said. No, it's not, Rory said. We're dragon masters. We should be able to take our dragons out whenever we want to. You have a point, Drake agreed, and I do think Worm would like to go outside again. Boo looked worried. What if Griff finds out? He asked. What if the king finds out? They won't find out, Rory said, so long as neither of you say anything. She looked at them both in the eyes. Well, come on then, said Anna. Drake slipped on his shoes. He followed the others down the hall. The door to Griff's room was opened. He was snoring loudly. Sss. Rory put a finger on her lips. Shh. As they tiptoed past the door, Drake peeked inside. The wizard's long beard flew up every time he snored. The Dragon Masters walked down the stairs. The guard in front of the training room door was asleep too. That's Simon, Rory whispered. He always falls asleep. They tiptoed past Simon and into the training room. The torches were not lit, so the room was black. Rory lit a candle. Then she passed candles to each of them. Now, let's get the dragons, she said, still whispering. They reached Vulcan's cave first. Rory opened the gates. Wake up, Vulcan, she said. We're going outside. Grumbling, Vulcan got to his feet. Anna and Boo woke up their dragons. Drake went into Worm's cave. Worm, do you want to go outside? Drake asked. Worm lifted his head. His eyes shot wide open. They stared right at Drake. Drake got a strange feeling. Come on, Worm, Drake said. But Worm didn't move. He just stared at Drake. Is he trying to tell me something? Drake wondered. Rory, Anna, and Boo walked up to Worm's cave with their dragons. Is Worm coming? Rory asked. Suddenly, Drake froze. He heard words inside his head. Do not go into the tunnel. Chapter 13. Trouble in the Tunnel. Did Worm just speak to me? Through his thoughts? Drake did not know what to think, but he had a feeling those words of warning had come from Worm. Drake, what's the matter? Anna asked. I'm not sure, he said. What would they think if I told them I just heard words in my head? Worm doesn't want to go. Fine, stay here. Be a big chicken, Rory snapped. I didn't say I was staying, Drake shot back. I'll come along without Worm. As soon as he said it, Worm crawled out of the cave. Look, he is coming with us, Anna said. Drake didn't hear any more words from his head. Maybe Worm had changed his mind. Rory led Vulcan forward. Let's get moving. They headed into the long tunnel that led outside. The torches on the walls weren't lit, and their candles weren't doing much to light things up. Capri can light the way, Anna said, but before she could give the command, Rory cried out, Look! Drake craned his neck to look around the dragons in front of him. Then he saw it. A glowing red orb floated toward them. It grew bigger and bigger as it got closer. That looks like wizard's magic, Anna cried. But it is not Griff's magic, said Boo. It feels scary. Just then, Vulcan let out a loud roar. His big tail thrashed back and forth. Calm down, Vulcan, Rory yelled. But her dragon was very upset. Whack, whack! Vulcan's tail banged against the sides of the tunnel. His big body slammed against the walls. Capri and Shu cried out. They both tried to turn back. Only Worm stayed calm. The tunnel began to shake. Dirt fell from the walls. The Dragon Masters all looked at one another. Run! Drake yelled, but it was too late. The walls caved in around them. Chapter 14. Trapped. Drake ducked as dirt rained down. He closed his eyes tight. Then the shaking stopped. Drake opened his eyes. All the candles had gone out. He looked behind him in the darkness. Worm, are you all right? Worm looked fine. In fact, he didn't have any dust on him. Everybody was pretty dirty. Is everybody okay? Drake asked. Anna was on the ground. Boo helped her up. I'm fine, she said. That was scary, though. Rory walked over. I'm sorry, she said. I don't know why that weird ball of light made Vulcan freak out. Drake looked around. Thankfully, it's gone now. We should get back, Boo said nervously. Drake looked past Worm. The tunnel was blocked with rocks and dirt. I don't think we can, Drake said. The way outside is blocked too, Rory said. We're trapped, said Boo. He turned to pale. Anna's dragon made a sad sound. It's okay, Capri, Anna said, stroking Capri's snout. Can you give us some light, please? Capri opened her mouth, and a beautiful white ball came out. The light hung in the air. Vulcan is strong, Rory said. He should be able to push through the rocks. Vulcan was calmer now, and the red orb was gone. He pushed at the rock wall, but the rocks didn't budge. Come on, Vulcan, Rory urged him, but Vulcan couldn't break through. Boo spoke up. I could have Shrew blast through the rocks with water. Anna frowned. What if that doesn't work? Then the tunnel will be filled with water. Everybody was quiet. They knew Anna was right. They were stuck. Drake looked at Worm. Sorry I got you into this, he whispered. Then, Worm's green eyes started to glow. A green light swept from the top of Worm's head to the end of his tail. Drake jumped back. Worm? He felt something warm on his chest. He looked down to see that his dragonstone was glowing too. Anna, Rory, and Boo's mouth dropped open. They stared at Worm and Drake. Worm's green glow filled the tunnel. Drake, it looks like your dragon's going to explode, Rory yelled. Chapter 15. Worm's Surprise. Worm didn't explode. Instead, the dragon closed his eyes. Then the rocks blocking the tunnel began to shake. What's happening? Boo yelled. Is Worm doing that? Anna asked. I think he's using the power of his mind, Drake said. He wasn't sure how he knew. He just did. Rory, Anna, and Boo stepped back. The rocks kept shaking. Then, poof! The rocks broke up into tiny pieces. Rock dust filled the air. Drake coughed, waving the dust away with his hands. All of the fallen rocks were gone. The tunnel was clear again. Drake hugged Worm. You did it, Worm. We should get out of here before Vulcan sneezes from all this dust, said Rory. The last time he sneezed, he turned my bread into toast. Rory's right, said Boo. Let's get out of here. Drake stepped through the pile of rubble and found himself face to face with Griff. Simon the guard stood behind Griff. You are all in big trouble, the wizard said. The whole castle is awake, and King Roland is furious. Chapter 16. Just the beginning. The group walked back through the tunnel in silence. The 6 of the king's guards were waiting for them in the training room. One stepped forward as soon as they entered. King Roland wants a report, he barked. The Dragon Masters all looked to Griff. He cleared his throat. Please tell King Roland that everything is fine, he said. The dragons tried to escape, but the Dragon Master stopped them. But Drake started to speak. Something about Griff's look told him to stay quiet. The soldier nodded to Griff. Very well, he said. Then the soldiers and Simon left. Drake turned to Griff. But the dragons didn't do anything wrong, he said. Rory stepped forward. Drake's right. This was my fault. I wanted to take the dragons outside, she said. She turned to the Dragon Masters. I'm sorry. It was a bad idea. Agreed, said Griff. Now tell me, how did you all get out of that collapsed tunnel? Worm saved us, Rory cried. Anna nodded. He glowed all green. It was amazing. And he turned the rocks to dust, Boo added. The wizard's eyes lit up. That's excellent. He grabbed Drake by the shoulders. I knew you could bring it out of him, Drake. Earth dragons have great power, Griff said. Worm has been hiding his power until now. He glowed because he was using it. Is that why my dragons don't glow too? No, the stone glows when you have a strong link with your dragon, Griff said. The link is strong when you and your dragon can read each other's thoughts. It will happen to other dragon masters too, in time. Drake remembered the words he heard in his head. Thank you, Worm, he said, stroking him. You really saved us today. Wait, we forgot to tell you about the red ball of light. Rory piped up. That's what scared Vulcan. When it flew into the tunnel, he panicked and made the tunnel collapse. A cloud came over Griff's face. Are you sure that you saw a red ball of light? All 4 dragon masters nodded. This is serious, Griff said. Danger may be heading our way. Danger? Boo asked. Griff patted Boo's head. For now, we are safe. Let's all get some sleep. As Drake led Worm back into his cave, he felt a strong connection with the dragon. He wasn't going back to the onion fields. This was his life now. A life full of dragons and magic and danger. He was a dragon master. Thank you very much for joining me today in reading Dragon Masters, Rise of the Earth Dragon. If you liked this video, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.